Welcome to Burning Bright, a weekly podcast presenting poetry and prose from Passenger. After a roughly 1,500-year break, the Olympics started up again in Athens, Greece in April 1896. The Olympics are about national pride and unity and international cooperation, but they're also about amateur athleticism, some team sports, and a lot of individual competitions. On this edition of Burning Bright, 4 pieces at least tangentially related to individual sports. Doug Arnold said that his poem, Over 60 Tennis, explores how an older man successfully relates to the outer world, even though his physical prowess, as shown through tennis, is in decline. The coiling and uncoiling of my stroke has lost much grace and power. But the ball's flight is governed by physics, only negligibly by me. It's been many years since my brain, with its feet propped up on a lobe of my cerebellum, cursed out my body for its rust. On these courts you can still feel traces of the fields of force, where younger egos once surged and flickered. The struck yellow sphere was a world unto itself. Now, with these lined rectangles of point and counterpoint that times made less important, we savor each of our still extant movements, slowly atrophying to extinction. Cunning stroke to the forehand, wily parry to the backhand, a gentleman's duel, killing time instead of each other. Stuffing it with our shared pleasure, we've become taxidermists of tennis balls. Let younger men hunt the planet's game. Doug Arnold's poem, Over 60 Tennis, from Passenger's 2011 Poetry Contest issue.
From 5,000 feet above the ground, the upper Chesapeake spreads out beneath my glider's wings. A frilled landscape, fields and towns outlined in blue-brown water.
Passenger?
No.
Passages?
No. Passenger. To subscribe to Passenger, go to passengerbooks.org. Passenger. The name's hard to remember. The writing's hard to forget. John McKernan said he wrote several poems titled Not a Stitch. One is about a girlfriend whom he later married. Another is about a person just before being wounded in an accident. He said this next poem is about his father, who died when John was 16, and his father was 47. John said, "That was the most traumatic event in my life, and I have never stopped writing about it." Not a stitch of time does my father wear. Not the tick of any clock above the calendar does he hear. There is nothing to read on this wide plain. Every name in granite will last 7 lifetimes. I like to listen to him up there in my brain, explaining to me how to tie the hook tight to the fishing line, so nothing can ever escape. John McKernan's poem, Not a Stitch, from the winter 2013 issue of Passenger. Susan Okie said her family took up whitewater kayaking when her sons were young. She said she loved the sensory rush, but, quote, paddling through fear has always been hard for me. Here's Susan's poem, Running Dimple Rapid, Youghiogheny River. No safety here. A pale, pocked boulder crouched against the flow makes all the current dash across its face. I cannot pull my eyes from Dimple Rock. My kayak caroms up its flank, flips over, upside down. I rush through darkness underwater, bubbles crack of stream on boulders. Once, before my child was born, I dreamed I wrapped the baby safe in gauze and put him in the freezer, then forgot his hiding place. The fates we dream are not the ones that catch us. Instead, in Kenya, his body burned like bread. His fever spoke in tongues. I fed him pills, Imagine blood cells swollen, coiled inside his brain, hissing in stereo. Malaria. Next morning, cool skin, a smile. Then Hannah, who had fled Cameroon with her daughter, called from Washington with news. Her Debbie, dead, killed in a school bus crash. Hanging without breath, I pop my spray skirt, wriggle from my boat, swim toward the light. This current sweeps me on. Rocks pummel shins and ribs. I become the roaring foam, the reaching upward, desperate to rise. Running Dimple Rapid, Youghiogheny River, by Susan Okie, from Passager's 2010 Poetry Contest issue. Susan said, the first time I ran Dimple, I fetched up on a boulder, flipped over, and had to swim. She said a veteran kayaker said, don't look at the rock, look where you want to go. Here's a wrestling poem by David Sloan, Takedown. Well, as you might expect, it's about wrestling and more. I want to be left alone to read, to wage war only against the garden weeds, fade into late middle age without a fuss. But my nearly grown son wants to wrestle, claims this mild June morning, French toast browning on the griddle, to fulfill some ancient covenant going back 5,000 years, when two figures, God-man and animal-man, locked arms, heedless of the midday heat, raucous crowd, unnerved dogs, and felt each other's strength swell like a sea surge, break without being broken, until their struggle turned dance. And they collapsed laughing, intoxicated with recognition. We both know this match cannot end in a draw. Our former selves lay hold of us in the ferocity of suns. Some taunting tone, defiant strut, a not-so-playful push. When my father shoved back, he showed me how to accept the moment of eclipse by not succumbing easily, nor clinging to the crown through supplication. Then I was the reckless aggressor, my father the wary fainter, waiting for my charge. Leg shoot, upthrust, takedown. Now my son darts beneath my defenses, crafty as a disguised god, and suddenly I am the one lying pinned, squirming, startled by the salt taste of surrender, too breathless to comfort the victor, whose eyes begin to brim with that uneasy mingling, elation, disillusion. David Sloan's poem, Takedown. He said the poem is largely autobiographical, and that the experience of lying pinned and wriggling beneath his son's burgeoning strength was life-altering for both of them. Passager published Takedown in its 2011 Poetry Contest issue. To subscribe to or learn more about Passager and its commitment to writers over 50, go to PassagerBooks.com. You can download Burning Bright from Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and various other podcast apps. For Kendra, Mary, Christine, Roseanne, and the rest of the Passager staff, I'm John Shore.